The ground shook beneath her armored boots as the Huntress walked across the ruined battlefield. Smoke still rose from the broken metal towers, and distant fires glowed under the gray alien sky. She stepped over crushed machines and lifeless bodies, both alien and human. Her eyes, sharp and cold, scanned everything. She was looking for only one target. The last human. He was dangerous. Stories about him had spread like wildfire. Her commanders warned her, "Do not underestimate the human. He is not like the others." But she didn't believe in stories. She was the Huntress, born to track, born to end threats. Her people had conquered many worlds. They believed humans were too emotional, too weak, too soft to win a real war. Yet this human had survived alone for weeks behind enemy lines, stealing supplies, disabling patrols, and destroying entire squads. Now she stood above him. He was lying in a crater, half buried under metal debris. His body looked broken. One arm was bent in the wrong direction. Blood covered his shirt and one of his boots was missing. He looked like he couldn't even move. But he was smiling. That smile confused her. He should have been afraid. He should have begged or cursed her, named like the others. But instead he looked up at her like he already knew something she didn't. She raised her blade. "You're the last of your kind on this planet," she said in her sharp, echoing voice. "You fought well, but it ends here." He coughed, and a bit of blood slipped from the corner of his mouth. Still, he smiled. "I figured you'd come for me," he said quietly. The Huntress frowned. "You're not scared?" she asked. He shook his head slowly. "No, I've seen worse than you." Her eyes narrowed. She didn't like that answer. She expected fear. She deserved fear. She had trained since childhood to become the perfect predator. Her armor was stronger than steel. Her weapons advanced beyond anything humans had. She had hunted beasts with 3 heads and fought warriors twice her size. But this human, injured and dying, was not afraid. "You think this is funny?" she asked. He looked up at the clouds. "A little," he whispered. "Because you think I've lost." The Huntress stepped closer, her sharp boots cracking bones beneath her. "Haven't you?" He looked her in the eyes. "That's what you'll believe, until it's too late." She stopped. There was no weapon in his hands, no signal, no beacon, no reinforcements. And yet, something in his voice made her hesitate. He wasn't lying. She could tell. Her kind had a special sense for detecting weakness in prey. But this human, his fear was gone, replaced with something else, something cold, something waiting. Suddenly, she remembered something her trainer once said. A true hunter never smiles at the prey. If the prey smiles at you, walk away, or you've already stepped into its trap. She looked around. Everything was still, silent. Then she looked back at him. "Why are you smiling?" she asked again, this time more carefully. He didn't answer. His breathing slowed, steady like he was meditating. But she noticed something small, too small for most to catch. His fingers moved, just slightly, just enough to reach into the dirt beside him. Was it instinct, or something else? She stepped back, blade raised. "You're delaying," she said. "Maybe," he said with a shrug. "Or maybe I'm just waiting." "For what?" He grinned wider. "For the right moment." Suddenly, a soft beep echoed from under the rubble. The Huntress spun around, alert now. But there was no one. She turned back toward the human, but now, the smile on his face was gone. His eyes had turned cold, focused. Something was happening. But before she could act, the ground beneath her trembled again. This time not from war, but from something beneath her feet. And then she realized, this was never a battlefield. This was his trap. The Huntress stood frozen. Beneath her armored feet, the ground gave a quiet, deep groan, like something was waking up below. She took one step back, blade still raised, her sharp eyes scanning for danger. The human remained on the ground, half covered by broken metal, still wounded, still weak, but no longer smiling. Now he watched her. Still, calm, ready. She had hunted many enemies in her lifetime. Creatures with teeth longer than her arm, soldiers with armor like tanks, assassins who moved faster than light. But none of them looked at her the way this human did. There was no fear, no panic, just patience. "What did you do?" she demanded, her voice sharp. He didn't answer. Instead, he looked toward the sky, quiet, thoughtful, as if he was listening for something or someone. The Huntress took another step back. Her instincts, trained over many cycles of battle, whispered one word in her mind: trap. She activated her wrist scanner. No signals, no enemies nearby, nothing in the air. But still the feeling wouldn't leave her. She stared at the human again. "Your wounds are real," she said. "You should be unconscious." He looked at her now. His face calm, but his eyes focused like a sniper. "I've been through worse," he said, "and I didn't survive this long by luck." The Huntress walked in a slow circle around him, watching every movement. "You've survived longer than anyone expected," she admitted. "But that ends today." He nodded. "Maybe. Or maybe you'll realize something today. Something your empire doesn't want you to know." Her grip on the blade tightened. "What are you talking about?" "You'll see," he said softly. "If you live long enough." The words struck her like a dart to the heart, not because they were a threat, but because they were filled with certainty. She paused near a piece of broken ship metal. Her eyes scanned the ground. That's when she saw it. A thin line, nearly invisible, ran across the dirt. A line connected to something hidden beneath the rubble. It led to a small device, almost too small to notice. A trap. Her muscles tensed. She leapt back just in time. A powerful boom burst upward from the ground, sending dust and shards of metal flying into the air. A shockwave knocked her off her feet. She rolled, landed hard, and slid across the rocky ground. Her helmet flickered, momentarily blinded by the blast. When her vision returned, the crater where the human had lain was now deeper, darker, and empty. He was gone. The Huntress pushed herself up, coughing through the smoke. Her armor had protected her, but barely. She reached for her blade, now buried in the dirt. "He planned this," she muttered. Far in the distance, she spotted movement. Fast, low, and controlled. A human figure running between cover, wounded but clever. He was escaping, or more likely, repositioning. She wanted to chase him. Every part of her training told her to hunt, to strike fast, to finish what she started. But something in her made her stop. She looked again at the trap site. It wasn't random. The line was too perfect. The device too well hidden. He had placed it in advance, not in panic but in preparation, which meant he knew she would come. The Huntress stood still, thinking carefully. She hated to admit it, but he was not like the other humans she had faced. He wasn't just surviving. He was hunting too. She activated her communicator. "This is Huntress Alpha to command," she said calmly. "The human is not dead. He escaped with help from hidden tech." Static. No answer. She tried again. Still nothing. Her brow furrowed. She turned her scanner toward the sky. And that's when she realized he had done more than set a trap for her. He had jammed her comms. Now, she was alone. The human had reversed the game. The prey had become the predator, and the Huntress, for the first time in her life, felt the cold sting of being hunted. The Huntress stood on the rocky hill, wind brushing dust across her armor. The air was quiet now, too quiet. The explosion had settled, the smoke had faded, and the prey was gone. But this prey, this human, was more than just a target. He was a message. As she scanned the land below, her mind drifted, not to fear but to memory. 3 cycles ago, when the war against humans first began, she had watched them fall quickly, Their ships were outdated. Their soldiers lacked armor. Their technology was years behind. It was supposed to be easy. That's what they were told. But then came him. He had no rank badge, no high-tech weapons, just grit, just instinct, and, in time, a name. A name whispered by frightened patrols. A name written in stolen blood on walls. They called him the Ghost. She remembered the reports. One patrol vanished without a trace, only a cracked helmet left behind. Another found their own weapons turned against them, traps everywhere. Commanders began to argue. How could one human survive this long behind enemy lines with no backup? She didn't believe it either. Not until today. And now, she had seen him. Up close. Not a ghost. Not a myth. Real. And smiling. Far below, among the broken machinery and hills of dirt, she saw small signs, boot prints, disturbed rocks, and drag marks. He was hurt, yes, but he was still moving, still thinking, still planning. She had to admit, part of her felt something new. Respect. But she quickly crushed the thought. He's still the enemy. She crouched beside a broken pipe and pulled out a scanner. Tool. It showed recent body heat readings. He had gone north, toward the cliffs. Dangerous terrain, sharp drops, little cover, but it was perfect for ambushes. Of course he went that way. She took a deep breath and moved, this time slower, smarter, no more overconfidence. She wasn't going to underestimate him again. Meanwhile, the human limped through the canyon trail. His leg burned with every step. His left arm was nearly useless. But he smiled again, not out of pride, but out of survival. I remembered his squad. They were ambushed weeks ago, separated. He watched two of his friends fall in front of him. He had no time to bury them, only enough to promise he'd finish what they started. So he vanished, into the rocks, into the shadows. He became everything the aliens feared. Not because he was the strongest, but because he was always thinking. He learned their language by listening to patrols. He studied their drones. He used old tools, wires, and scrap metal to make his own traps. He turned their own pride against them, and when they sent her, the top hunter, they thought she would be the end. But he smiled because he knew something they didn't. He was never cornered. He was waiting. Back on the Huntress's side, she moved through the rocky pass, senses sharp. Her eyes darted to every crack and ledge. Each sound of wind or falling stone made her pause. She stopped beside a small pile of bones. Animal bones. Picked clean, but beside them a strip of cloth. Human. She crouched. It was stained, but still warm. He had been here recently. She followed the trail a bit further and saw a narrow cave entrance half covered by branches. She raised her weapon, heart steady. One wrong step, and she could trigger another trap. One wrong move, and the ghost would disappear again. She didn't know it yet, but he was already inside that cave, watching her from the shadows. He had left that cloth on purpose. He wanted her to come closer. Because the next part of his plan, it was just beginning. The Huntress stood just outside the narrow cave entrance. The air was still. Too still. The broken branches covering the cave looked freshly moved. That strip of human cloth lying beside the bones, it was no accident. It was an invitation. Challenge. She took a slow breath and stepped inside. The cave was dark, the walls tight. Her armor brushed against stone as she moved forward. Small drops of water dripped from above. The floor was rough and uneven. She had to crouch in places, lowering her weapon. Her scanner gave low readings. No movement ahead. But she didn't trust it anymore. This human had already proven he could hide his tracks, jam signals, and use old tricks in new ways. Still, she moved forward, step by step. Deeper in the cave, the human leaned against the wall, holding his breath. He could hear her, each movement of her armor, each heavy step. It was clear. She had entered. He smiled again, just a little. This was what he had waited for. He looked down at the small device he had placed near his feet. A pressure pad. Old tech, but reliable. One step on the wrong stone would activate a smoke bomb. It wouldn't harm her, but it would blind her. That was all he needed. Just a few seconds. He checked the wires once more, making sure everything was ready. And then he waited. The Huntress moved deeper. The cave bent slightly to the left. Her eyes scanned everything. Her weapon stayed up. She was careful not to touch the walls. She knew he could have placed traps anywhere. She paused when she saw a small crack of light, a hole in the cave ceiling. Moonlight poured through it, shining on a flat stone ahead. It looked out of place. She stepped closer. Her scanner beeped but gave no warning. She raised her foot to step forward, and then stopped. Her instincts shouted at her. She took a slow step back, and that's when it happened. Click. A tiny sound. From behind her. Her boot had pressed something, hidden under a pile of dirt. A sharp hiss echoed, and suddenly thick white smoke filled the cave. The scanner failed. Her visor went blurry. She spun around, blade ready, but she couldn't see anything. Her breathing quickened. Then, she heard a footstep. Behind her. Too late. The human moved fast, despite his pain. As the smoke covered the cave, he slid from his hiding spot and hit her. From the side, not with a killing blow, but with a hard push. She stumbled, crashed into the wall and dropped her weapon. He didn't waste time. He grabbed the weapon and tossed it behind him. She swung at him blindly, claws out. He ducked, grabbed her arm, and twisted just enough to make her fall to one knee. She wasn't used to this, not being the one in control. In the smoke, they couldn't see each other clearly, but they felt every movement, every breath. "You should have finished me earlier," he said, his voice low but calm. "You're still injured," she growled. "You can't win." He chuckled softly. "I don't need to win. I just need you to see the truth." "What truth?" "That you're not the hunter anymore." As the smoke faded, she backed away, gasping. Her helmet was cracked. Her blade was gone. And he stood there, bruised, bleeding, but holding her arm weapon. He didn't aim it at her. Instead, he dropped it. "What are you doing?" she asked, surprised. "Showing you something your commanders won't," he said. "I could have killed you, but I didn't." "Why?" "Because you're not my enemy, not really." She stared at him, confused. "No one ever told you what really started this war, did they?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. "They told us humans attacked first." He reached into his pack and tossed her a small device. "Play that. When you're ready." Then he turned and began limping away into the deeper parts of the cave. The Huntress looked down at the device. What was he talking about? What was on it? She didn't know yet, but for the first time she wasn't sure she knew who the real enemy was. The Huntress sat alone in the cave, holding the small data device the human had given her. Her armor was scratched. Her blade was lost. Her pride shaken. She looked toward the dark tunnel where the human had vanished. She could still hear his footsteps echoing faintly, slowly fading away. Why didn't he kill her? She was trained to expect no mercy from humans. But he had spared her. Twice now. And then he gave her a device. A message. She turned the device over in her hand. It was a human data chip, but modified to work with alien tech. Clever. Typical of him. She tapped her wrist console and inserted the chip carefully. A projection appeared in the air before her, flickering, old footage. At first it showed a peaceful alien city, bright and alive. Then came explosions. But they weren't human weapons. They were from her own empire, her people. The video showed secret files, documents, voice recordings, mission orders. The war didn't start because humans attacked. It started because the Empire found something on Earth they wanted. Energy, technology, or something even deeper. But Earth wouldn't give it. So they called the humans a threat, a lie. The Huntress felt her chest tighten. Her people had trained her since childhood to believe she was protecting the galaxy, that humans were wild and dangerous, but the truth was now in front of her. They had started the war and he knew it. That's why he smiled. That's why he fought. Not out of hate, but because he knew what was right. Deeper in the cave, the human leaned against a wall, breathing hard. His wounds hurt more now. The fight had taken a lot out of him. But he had no regrets. He didn't kill the Huntress because he saw something in her. Control, skill, and a spark of honor. She wasn't like the others. She wanted to understand her enemy. She paused instead of attacking blindly. That mattered. He didn't have many allies left. Most of his team had been lost. He had survived by being silent, smart, and fast. But he was tired of running. That's why he gave her the truth. Maybe she would listen. Maybe not. But it was worth the risk. Back near the cave entrance, the Huntress replayed the message again and again. Her hands trembled. Everything she had believed, every mission she completed, it was built on lies. She looked up. The silence around her now felt heavy. Then she stood. Her training told her to capture or kill the human, but her heart told her to find him and ask more. She followed the trail deeper into the cave, careful not to trigger any more traps. His footprints were faint but still visible. He was losing blood. He needed help. After a few minutes, she saw a small fire ahead, and him, sitting beside it, eyes half closed. He didn't reach for a weapon. He didn't move. He just looked up at her. "You stayed," he said quietly. She nodded. "I watched the file." "And?" She walked closer, her voice calmer now. "It's true. The Empire started this war." He didn't reply. He didn't need to. She sat across from him, near the fire. "You're not just a soldier," she said. "You're a warrior." He raised an eyebrow. "What's the difference?" "A soldier follows orders. A warrior follows truth." The fire crackled between them. For a moment, they were not enemies, not alien and human. Just two people, tired of fighting, tired of lies. She looked at his injuries. "You won't survive without treatment." "No, I can help." He studied her eyes carefully. She was serious. "But if I go back with you, I'll be a prisoner," he said. She shook her head. "Not anymore." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not going back." The fire between them burned low, giving off soft light in the dark cave. The human sat with his back against the stone wall, breathing slowly. The Huntress sat across from him, her helmet off now, her sharp features calm, but thoughtful. "I'm not going back," she repeated. The human looked at her, surprised. "You're leaving your people?" "I'm leaving the lies," she said. "The Empire used us, used me. I see that now." He studied her face. Her voice held no anger, only quiet disappointment. She had given her whole life to the Empire. And now she was lost. "You're brave," he said. "Most wouldn't even watch the truth." She gave a small nod. "I was taught to follow orders, but you follow your heart." He smiled. "That's how humans survive, even when the odds are impossible." They sat in silence for a while. The only sound was the wind blowing through cracks in the cave. Outside, the stars lit the sky. Peaceful, for now. "Do you have a name?" she asked suddenly. He hesitated, then replied. "Cal." "Cal," she repeated, testing the sound. "I'm Sira," he nodded. "Nice to finally meet you without a weapon between us." Sira gave a small smile, her first real one. But their moment of peace didn't last long. Suddenly, Cal's ears caught something, metal shifting, a faint buzz in the air. He turned to Sira. "Do you hear that?" She activated her scanner. Her eyes widened. "Drones," she said quickly. "3 of them, Empire trackers." "How did they find us?" Cal asked. "I don't know," she said. "But if they're here, others will follow." Cal forced himself to stand, wincing in pain. Sira reached out to help him, and this time he didn't stop her. "We can't fight them," he said. "Not in your condition, not in mine." Sira nodded. "We'll run. There's a tunnel that leads through the mountain. I saw it when I scouted this area weeks ago." Together they gathered what little they had, some water, a flare, and Cal's homemade map. Then they moved quickly through the winding cave, deeper into the shadows. Behind them, the faint humming grew louder. The hunt was back on. But this time, Sierra was no longer the hunter, she was the target too. As they moved through the tight rock passage, Cal asked, "Do you trust me now?" Sierra gave a short breath. "I trust you enough to run beside you. That's good enough for me." They pushed forward, climbing over sharp rocks and ducking under low ceilings. Cal's body screamed in pain, but he kept going. Sierra stayed, close, watching for movement, ready to fight if needed. When they reached a wider part of the tunnel, they stopped to rest. Sierra checked her scanner again. "They're still coming," she said. "We have 10 minutes, maybe less." Cal leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "We can't outrun them forever." "No," she said, "but we can outsmart them." She pulled a small disc from her armor, a signal scrambler. "I'll set this up here. It will confuse their sensors and make them think we're still in the cave." Cal raised an eyebrow. "And where will we be?" She pointed upward. "There's a narrow crack near the roof. If we climb up, it leads to a hidden exit, but it's steep, very steep." Cal gave her a tired grin. "Steep is fine, as long as it's not a dead end." They got to work. Sierra placed the scrambler and set a timer. Then she helped Cal climb. It wasn't easy. His leg was weak and his arm was nearly useless, but he didn't give up. She offered her hand more than once, and he took it. Not because he was weak, but because they were now a team. At last, they reached the exit, an opening high on the side of the mountain. From there, they could see the valley below. Distant lights moved through the trees, drones and soldiers searching, but not here. Not yet. They were safe. For now. Cal sat down beside her, breathing heavy. "Why are you helping me?" he asked again. Sierra looked at the stars above. "Because I finally met a human who didn't act like the monster they warned me about." She turned to him. "And because, if there's still hope in this galaxy, I think it's with people like you." The valley below stretched wide under the pale light of distant stars. From their high hiding spot, Sierra and Cal could see the faint glow of Empire searchlights moving slowly through the trees. The Empire's forces were closing in, but now they were no longer alone in this fight. Sierra's communicator crackled softly. A hidden signal. Cal looked at her, confused. "Who is it?" he asked. She tapped the device. "Allies, a rebel group, humans and aliens alike, who want to end the Empire's lies. They've been waiting for someone like us to lead." Cal's eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Deadly serious." Back in the Empire's capital, lies were unraveling faster than anyone had predicted. The secret files Cal had shared were leaking through underground networks. The Empire's hold on the galaxy was weakening, but there was one final challenge: her own people. Sierra knew the path ahead was dangerous. Many would call her a traitor. Some would hunt her down, but she no longer cared. Her loyalty was to truth, and to the man beside her. "We have to move fast," Sierra said. Cal nodded, steady despite his pain. They climbed down the mountain using narrow paths hidden by thick trees. Their movements were silent, but the sounds of the Empire's forces grew louder behind them. Suddenly, from the dark forest, a group of armored soldiers appeared. An ambush. Sierra's heart raced, but Cal was ready. Together, they fought side by side. She moved with precision, striking quickly. He moved with cleverness, using the terrain and his traps. Their teamwork surprised the soldiers. When the last enemy fell, Sierra looked at Cal and smiled. "This is what we can do. Together." They reached the rebel base deep inside a hidden cave. System. Leaders greeted them with hope and relief. A meeting was held. Plans were drawn. The Empire would fall, not by force alone, but by truth and unity. Sierra stood before the crowd, her voice strong and clear. "I was their hunter," she said, "but now I am their challenger." Cal stepped beside her. "We have seen the truth," he said, "and together we will fight for a future where no lies rule." Days later, the Empire launched a final assault on the rebel forces. The battle was fierce. Lasers lit the sky. Ships roared overhead. But Sierra and Cal fought like never before. Cal's smiles were no longer because he waited. They were because he believed. In victory. In hope. When the battle ended, the Empire's flag fell. The galaxy watched as peace began to grow. Sierra and Cal stood side by side. The Huntress who once thought she had defeated him. The human who waited for the right moment. Now, united as warriors of truth. As the sun rose on a new day, Sierra turned to Cal. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For showing me the meaning of honor." Cal smiled. "The honor was always there," he said. "You just had to find it." Together, they looked to the stars, ready for whatever came next.